I'm well. I'm well. As usual, doing too many things, and I should focus more. But I, my stepmom, who's an academic, asked me to do a little presentation on AI and my criticism of AI. So I'm working on that right now.
Cool.
Different. So I have
Yeah.
to write a bit and a different audience, whatever. I mean, you think it's stuff you've presented, it shouldn't take that long, but not that simple.
Yeah, things are often a little bit more complicated than we expect.
Yep.
The human brain's not good at estimating the tasks we do these days.
Yes. What's up with you?
Health-wise, I'm doing a little better, but I still won't go to work on projects like our projects until maybe next year. I got to catch up.
Mhm.
Got to get my mom's health, get her situated. Um, Trying to get her on Medicaid.
Right.
Apparently, if you want to get anything from the government these days in the United States, you have to hire a lawyer. So that's what we're doing.
Yes.
You have to have
Yes.
a professional. It's too complicated for the average human to handle. Even me, who handles complicated things. But anyways, yeah, my health is kind of up and down, but better. So yeah, I'm chomping at the bit to play around. I think I'm going to start over from scratch, and I was going to say vibe code, but that's not actually it, right? But yeah, accelerate with AI. But because I'm actually going to be like checking the code, that's no longer vibe coding. And since I have the skill, but yeah,
Yeah. I'm reading a lot of contradictory statements about, oh yeah, it helps so much. Oh yeah, it doesn't help actually if you measure. Um, it's
yeah,
it's so interesting. The it's all over the map. There are clearly people who manage to get AI to do something useful for them.
yeah. Well, I
Uh,
might be, I'm toggling back and forth between so many APIs and libraries that I haven't like I know devs that, you know, they're in more kind of narrow areas, so they can't type fast enough. But me, I'm spending so much time in the docs um, that oftentimes an AI can put it in faster. Now, then there is the 20 minutes you spend where it just botched everything up, and you're like, okay, I have to undo this whole thing. Or I have to, yeah. So I've definitely been in times where I get into an argument with it. Um, and the models seem to be changing daily, like on what they handle well and what they don't and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know if I could prove that's net. I do feel faster. Of course, all the studies they've done on it show everyone feels like they're faster, but when they actually look at it, they're slower. Depending on which study you look at. I haven't looked at them all, but I've seen
yeah,
headlines.
I've seen that often. Yes, I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
that often.
So
I
I
I have a AI code review in at Discourse class.
cool.
Code Rabbit.
Oh
It
yeah, I
works.
heard about
It's sometimes it makes mistakes, so I'm glad I'm rereading it carefully. And sometimes it catches my mistakes.
it.
Uh, it's good to have another
Another set of
process.
eyes.
It's another set of eyes, but I can't trust it blindly, which
Yeah,
I wouldn't. But
right.
basically, as an extra pair of eyes, yeah, sure, it's been useful a few times. I'm not letting it code, but I'm letting it find issues with my code, and that's fine. Is it a good use of computing process? Is a good question, but let's not.
That's a good question.
Absolutely. Not going there. Not going there.
So it looks like you introduced Dorian to our group.
I did, and I was hoping to see him come. If it's just us two, maybe we need to. It won't happen. I not absolutely have tons on my lap, so if this doesn't happen, it doesn't. But basically, let me give let me give some relevant news. Let's still do our
Yeah,
respective
people will
news.
watch the video, so it'll be useful. Go for it.
Exactly. So, last month I spent time at a summer of protocols, which I think was a good use of my time because I'm still hoping to do a kind of uh, collective intelligence slash uh, argument definition protocol. I, as part of that process, I did write something. It's not complete, it's not final, but it's, let's say, a step in that direction. And here is the, how do I copy copy here? And it's in any type, so I get any type URL, not my usual URLs, but this is what I wrote on it. It's somewhere in my hyper knowledge. I think I put a
Do you mind
post
go
on
ahead
it.
and posting that in the
I,
Discord
I I'll do it. I'll do it.
if it's ready for that?
Yeah, it's ready for that. It's not final, but it's final as in this is where I'm at on this issue, and it's public that I'm there on this issue. I did publish that to that pride, and it went in to continue that work. But what are the base concepts and what are the protocol actions? And so this whole thing I've been talking about refinement, distinction, and concept evolution, and merge, and this and that. So I've tried to make it a bit more formal. These are the actions, and you do them in this order, and this is the resulting calculations, and blah, blah, blah. There's still a bit of hand waving on the calculations. I still have work to do. None of that is implemented, but I formalized what I see as the steps of the ID alignment protocol as I see it. And I claim that there's actually not that many steps that are needed to like not that many different steps, that a lot of complex steps we can think about can be expressed in terms of very few uh, elementary steps. So that's the claim I'm making. Of course, it can be disagreed, criticized, disagreed with. And oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Would totally be very useful feedback.
Mhm.
But I think I can do it. So, but yeah, there's still stuff that is perfectly hand wavy, as I said, in the calculations and stuff. Uh, so that's what I did over that week. I mean, I did much more over that week. It was actually a very intense class on what's a protocol and how do we define protocols, and there were so many aspects. I'm really happy I went through it. But that being done, that was my little sub project in that setup. Otherwise, I'm slowly spending time on debate map and thinking about what are the elementary operations on, debate graphs. And we had a fascinating conversation, which is not totally finished. That's internal, I guess, but I think some of it is very much more general. A lot of people think of ontologies and what are the uh, elementary components. Like, is everything a claim? Is everything? I said, no, not everything's a claim. A project or a task is not a claim, right? There are underlying claims to some of them, like this project is well defined, this project is worth doing, uh, this task, things like that. But there's a whole question of the ontology. Then there's a whole question of relationship ontology, and then I say, oh, actually, a lot of things are action schemas, and that's my filter. And then I'm realizing that a lot of people describe things informally. Like, for example, we have the distinction between claim and hypothesis. Well, what's a hypothesis? It's a claim that is in a certain schema. Like we intend to prove this. It's a hypothesis, and we'll do experiments that may prove this. So people use roles, schema roles, as classifiers instead of ontology. And I think this is real and valid, and it's part of the progressive formalization up to a point. It's like people will invent ontology terms that are actually roles. And being able to go between, on the surface, hypothesis is a perfectly valid ontology category. At a deeper level, well, it's a claim with, unproven epistemic value, and it's a question. We want the value of that, but these are all kind of, for me, meta attributes of the claim. Is the claim proven? Is the claim interesting? La 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 la. But so for me, hypothesis totally is a claim. But it's also
Hey,
true
Joel.
that.
Sorry, Mark.
Hey,
Come on.
hey, how are you?
I was just saying hi to Joel, but yeah. Don't let me
Yeah.
interrupt you.
No. It's fine. It's fine. People are not coming at the same time. So yeah, I'm just doing my recap of things I'm thinking about these days. So yeah, letting people think in terms of their own categories, some of which may not map to the ontology, is needed. And at the same time, being able to connect from that semi-formal to a more, well, actually, the hypothesis is a claim. So this is very informal, but it's something I'm thinking about also. And this, I guess, are the main relevant things I've been doing recently. I've spoken about the conference I gave. I still haven't put up the presentation. I hope to get the DOI, hopefully not too late. But I need to write the presentation. But as I said, I'm doing a presentation this Monday, so I'm busy with that. Okay, over. Who next?
So Joel already kind of gave my update, and Mark Antoine just finished his, which we might talk about some more, and you can watch on the video. But I invite you to go ahead and say what you've been up to. And
Okay. I mentioned last time that I was like starting to look into trying to create a nonprofit, and I like applied for an accelerator, and then I've only applied for one so far, but there aren't that many for nonprofits specifically, I guess. And I made some progress on nonprofit paperwork, but I still haven't applied. So that's that, and I guess I've been trying to do that outside of like working on the app still. So the latest thing in the app, I have been designing like a way to kind of focus on any number of nodes. Like you pick a node and then you focus on it, and then it shows like based on the node type, it can show kind of summaries. Um, like, if you select a solution, you can see the trade-offs for the solution or the components of the solution, just like in the diagram, have like a multi-select that pick the relevant things for that type of node. So I think one of the things that's still a problem with Ameliorate is just navigating easily around a bunch of the nodes when the topic gets big, and managing the views. So yeah, working on improving that recently.
I have a question. You say you're trying to create a nonprofit. What's the scope of your nonprofit?
Well, specifically, I guess it's around the app. I think the verbiage is like the problems that the app is trying to solve, which is basically helping people critically think together better about problems. And then I guess the app is the solution that is the main way of achieving the problem right now. So yeah, I guess if you mean scope, like that's just like kind of a big goal of the nonprofits. I am, maybe by scope you also mean like target audience, which like I am trying to, well, in recent times I've been trying to narrow to like the legislative realm, and like political related things specifically.
Just
Um,
put yourself out of the nonprofit realm.
just what about the nonprofit realm?
Nonprofits don't do politics.
Well, nonprofits don't side with politicians, but
Yeah,
they
as
can do
long as you
politics.
can say you can remain gender and political neutral, your nonprofit can do this, and it's up to the
Yeah.
people in the thing to do whatever they do. But the nonprofit cannot advocate. And I have a. I'm sorry we lost Marc Antoine.
Oh yeah.
Why? Um, why did you choose nonprofit over, for example, a B Corp?
I am not familiar with B Corp. The
So
main,
a B Corp is a nonprofit that can have stockholders.
Well, a B Corp is a profit that has a, this is my understanding, Jack, is a for-profit corporation that has a line item above profit. Like
Yeah, that's
you're allowed
that.
to have a social component.
I describe it as a nonprofit that can have stockholders and can make money, and
Right. So yeah, so Jack is
mm,
giving his opinion
but
well,
of what
you
it's
could,
useful
in
for,
other
yeah.
words, the cool thing about a B Corp is the stockholders cannot sue you for their financial gains. They can come after you if you don't live up to the public benefit that you declared.
mm,
Right. Yeah,
well,
that's the main difference.
Yeah, that's the main difference.
But you
And
can still
unlike
make
a
profits
nonprofit,
and you can
yes,
still distribute profits. Then you can take investors. Um,
unlike a nonprofit, you can't take tax deductible donations.
oh,
I've been running a nonprofit for about 10 years, but when I joined forces with Marc Antoine, became clear that for us to do any real commerce, we were going to have to go the B Corp route. And and
mm,
and that, as opposed to a C Corp or an LLC or any of those, where the stockholders can make demands on you that are counter to the values that you bring to the table.
when you say commerce, I mean, nonprofits should be able to do commerce as well. What were the
Oh,
sticking points?
I could look, SRI International, where I worked, did all
Hmm.
kinds of commerce, but they did it in a very shady way. They did it by way of spinning corporations out of the things that the government paid them to invent. And they're doing very well.
Well, I mean, traditionally, there's a difference kind of between how nonprofits are run traditionally and what the legal limitations are. And haven't been in charge of one, although my wife is part of an association, which is a form of, it's not a 501c, but it's a different form. Um, and they sell products and stuff. They're just not allowed to make a profit off of
Yeah,
it.
I could do that too. I could
Yeah.
sell badges and whatever. Um, you
Well,
know,
you could sell actual products, and that could be your thing. I mean, you
we
could
could
make
do that,
phones and sell them. You just
but
have to
but
spend all the
but
money you get.
we kind of want to outgrow the limitations. For example, a nonprofit can't do an SBIR.
I'm not familiar with that.
SPR.
Small Business Innovative Research. It was invented back in the Jimmy Carter days to allow the peasants to come in and compete for government contracts. But they have to be a small company, like no more than 50 employees, that kind of thing. And so it wasn't a new gravy train for Lockheed or Boeing or any of those. And I got a few SBIR contracts, and they're a phased, but they are designed to generate revenue generating products for society. That's what the government is. It's kind of like the NSF and that sort of, and so nonprofits don't fit the SBIR mold, but B Corps do.
Yeah. Yeah. So there might be some government funding that applies to B Corps that don't apply to nonprofits.
Yeah, I think for me, well, I didn't thoroughly investigate the B Corp, obviously I didn't know about, but I think I guess it feels like, well, for one, that mission is above profits in this realm. I think for-profits can still be in that category,
Not
but
legally, no.
well, you could.
With only with a B Corp. With a C Corp,
With the C Corp, you cannot.
it's the stockholders going to come after you if you don't do everything to get them their dividends.
You've made a legal agreement that says I will put profit above people and things.
Right.
Oh, they lie about that all the time, but that's legally what they've in the United States.
Just imagine what Facebook would be if it had been a B Corp. It would actually be a force for good.
Yeah.
But now it's a force for evil.
Well, it's a force for profit. It just happens to be the best way to make money is by being evil in today's climate. Short term.
I think it's structurally a force for evil. The fact that it makes money from engagement and engagement from basically strong emotions is bound structurally to amplify fear and hate.
I think so for me, the impact is definitely more important. I think most people would probably say that.
Everybody in this room would, yes.
But like I guess it doesn't feel like people in this realm have necessarily, I guess I don't see a reason why it can't work. And it has benefits over for-profit, right? Like all of the ways to potentially take kind of like build a community and kind of take advantage of volunteers and philanthropy. Like if it's something that everybody kind of wants to help build, then it's has that advantage, which I think when it's for profit or B Corp, I think sounds like it would be similarly, like it wouldn't have that, for good feel for everyone. And just like the precedence around that difference in feel seems important. I do think it is the type of thing that could be done for profit as well, but it doesn't seem like the advantages are worth it to me.
There's pros and cons, and it's hard to understand them all. I mean, when I created my company as a for-profit, I think that I thought some subsidies would be easier to obtain this way. Now I'm not so clear. I kind of feel I should have done nonprofit, but I think the reality is you need more than one. And some people find it easier to go for-profit plus B Corp, plus nonprofit. And some people find it, and I think it is better to go B Corp and nonprofit. But you do need, because in our case, we're both wanting something that is public interest and should be, frankly, publicly funded, as far as I'm concerned. And if we can, since it won't get publicly funded, we need to somehow do something on the side that funds it. And this is where having the ability to invest, to get investors interested is important. So it must be possible to divide the project in kind of two layers, one that is totally public and public interest, and have the B Corp handle that, and a little part that somehow makes money and funds the other one. You could do it all within the nonprofit, I think it's less adapted, but it's about who will you get to fund this, and
Hmm.
there are different. The reason I asked, by the way, and I want to get back into that is, I've been thinking a lot about uh, having. I don't know if CDL has a structure. Bentley, maybe you know.
There's no legal structure.
No legal structure, right? Uh, I think we need a legal structure that will handle the kind of herding the cats function I see, right? If we're going to not only do our own little pet private projects, but try to share data format and or protocol and or have an ecosystem of tools that can talk to one another as opposed to we're all doing our little thing in our corner, then that activity is something that should be shepherded by a kind of higher level entity. That should totally be nonprofit because it's about let's make all our ventures work together well. And also, I think, I keep saying collective intelligence people don't work together all that well. Let's have everybody's, this is what I want to do. This is my definition of success, criteria, whatever. And let's see what is really needed for the ecosystem to exist as a whole. So that's a separate entity than what Joel is saying. And maybe I should build something or do something other topic wise, but the reality should also probably, and that's harder, I have no clue about the legal forms for that, should probably be international because, we have players in many countries. And I think at this point, I'm trying to not be too bound to US laws for some reason. Funny
Yeah.
that.
So we've kind of discussed this a bit in the past, and the where we landed kind of last time, I think, was that if we did have any shared assets that were important, I mean, like technically, I think I own the domain. So, at any point, I could take my toys and go home and yard grid. So but the liability is, or the damage to the individual participants is pretty small right now because we don't have anything of substance. It's really important, just the name, and no one technically owns the name, but owning the domain name is really, I think, the only thing of importance. The GitHub account, we have multiple people have logins to that. I think both me and Tim are at equal weight, so whoever shuts the other person off first wins. Hopefully someone's taken a backup of the GitHub account at some point, forked it. But yeah, so yeah, if we do actually, if something starts congealing, looking at putting a legal structure around it might be wise, especially if there's any services running. I know a lot of things that have protocols, organizations have a legal structure around that. I don't know how necessary that is, but I'm open.
You need, it's true that you're absolutely right about, on the one hand, I don't think we have assets in the sense we're creating intellectual property, but not in a way that's asset-like. It's not something that's easy to grab and own and enclose. But if we're going to build protocols and data formats and this and that, these, they'll be set in the public domain up to a point. Like you cannot have you can have private protocols. That's the point. But then you have reference implementation and servers, and those are assets. Like I have tons of stuff, and that's the other reason I have Conversants. I have a private company so that I can, and every time I earn money, I earn it through the company, which then pays me and pays for the server and the infrastructure, and that's how I have a server running. So that's useful. Being able to say I have a server running on which I can put accounts and data. I see that as useful.
Yeah.
This costs something.
Okay, so yeah, so I think we can.
Oh, Jack left.
He's just turned his video off momentarily.
Yes.
So if I can switch topics, unless
No.
there's more you want to talk about that.
I guess
Or Joel, if you
I
have
could also just say, like, I think for me, back to like for my nonprofit versus not nonprofit, like a big thing for me is that I guess I feel more confident myself trying to sell the like for good aspect. Like I would rather, if I'm gonna have to be the one to sell it, I would rather sell the for good aspect rather than the like for profit aspect. And so like it just doesn't sound appealing to me to have to do that to, to sell to investors. I guess I would rather sell to people that are on the same, the same goal as me. So yeah, I think that's kind of like what it comes down to, probably. But,
yeah, I've looked at both, and I'm probably still leaning towards nonprofit more than B Corp, but depends on the needs of the specific project.
There's no question that with the B Corp, you can totally make the public good spiel. It's just you'll be able to get investors as well as donators.
But I guess like if you do donators still get the like charitable giving tax benefits?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know, and I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but I'm not
In which
sure.
context?
In a B Corp.
No, their donors don't. There's no tax deduction. It's not a 501c3.
Because
And
I
there
guess
probably
that's
aren't. I don't even know if you'd call them donors. They're investors, but yeah.
They're investors. They get stock.
right. Yeah. So I guess that's like the pools of money. There's the like from people who invest to get stock, and then there's the pool that like well, I guess there's a whole pool of people that like actually want it to succeed and like don't care as much about the tax benefits, but there's a lot of like philanthropy just from like companies that like want to reach their like philanthropy goals or whatever, and that like they wouldn't help the the nonprofit route.
I'll tell you about one risk. In a nonprofit situation, if it goes under for any reason, there's no such thing as a hostile takeover. If it got merged with somebody else, whatever, its assets have to be dispersed in a nonprofit way. Whereas a B Corp, you always have this risk of a Zuckerberg coming in and saying, I'll give you guys $1 trillion. I want to take over your thing. And your investors will say, screw this, I'm out of here. And their values will be gone. And I don't know about the legality of unwinding a B Corp back into a C Corp. I don't know anything about that. But that is I see that as a downstream risk. Dorian, you made it. We're gabbing about nonprofits and B Corps.
Oh, wonderful. I was just in a call, but it was later and then it got moved up. So anyway, here I am. Sorry, it's fashionably late.
You might want to, if you've never been here before, tell these guys who you are.
Yeah, hi, Dorian Taylor. So I tumbled into the world of IBIS kind of by accident. God, it's got to be like 15, 16 years ago at this point. Didn't really do anything about it until very recently. Just made a thing that runs that. I made a OWL ontology for it to encode it about back in 2012 or something like that when I first wrote it, and then had like a little prototype for it, and now I've been trying to turn that into an actual thing. because my whole sort of shtick around IBIS was I think it would help a lot if the systems were permeable and if there's a way to exchange the state information. So that was sort of where I came from with that. But otherwise, it's been a very arduous and slow process getting there. So yeah, I had a call with Marc-Antoine yesterday morning, and he said you should try to join up for this thing, and so here I am. So I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. I'm going to mute my mic.
Well,
He's got a GitHub repo with a program I think it's called Intertwingler.
Yeah, Intertwingler is it's an application server design, and intertwingler.net is the thing. It's an application server designed to for what I've been calling dense hypermedia. And by dense hypermedia, I mean in contrast to sparse hypermedia, which is what you normally see on the web. Where if you were going to take your average website and you were going to just clip off the main navigation, there wouldn't be any links left. So the idea is like, how do you make, something, the web be more linky? And one of the big problems was eliminating 404s and getting stable URLs so that there was, none of that link rot happening. So that's one of the main things Intertwingler does is kind of prevent link rot, or what it's, I mean, you can, if you really want it to, you can make it rot links, but it won't do it by default. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing is, was the IBIS tool itself that I wrote is called Sense Atlas, that runs on top of Intertwingler. And that's the thing that uses the vocabulary. And IBIS is just sort of like one module in Sense Atlas. I mean, I can show it.
I think that would be delightful.
Yes. And the parallels to the SenseCraft vision are profound. My only objection is that Intertwingler is written in Ruby. It doesn't fit in any of my app stacks.
So there's a reason why it was written in Ruby, and the reason why it was written in Ruby was because the Ruby RDF framework has a reasoner, and the only other reasoners are in Java, and I didn't want to write it in Java, and that's the only reason why.
Well, my temptation was to ask ChatGPT to rewrite it in Java so I could play with it.
I was originally going to write it in Clojure, but
fine.
But I would have needed to spend several months like wrapping Jenna at the time, and I just didn't have the time for that. But the Intertwingler, like the whole point of Intertwingler is to actually be sort of federated anyway. Like it kind of works like a reverse proxy, like it's designed to work like a reverse proxy. It's designed to plug everything in Intertwingler is like a handler. It's a microservice. This Intertwingler is very alpha right now. So what I'm talking to you about right now is like really, really aspirational. But the idea would be like every node, every Intertwingler node just has a set of URLs that it's responsible for. And if it doesn't have them, it passes it down the line to something else in the chain that will have it. And then there's a thing that I'm working on called a handler manifest protocol, which basically is a way for a handler to advertise what URLs it has. And so at the very front, you'll have the master version of it that's going to have the master list of all the URLs. And then it'll do rewriting of bodies. One of the main things Intertwingler has is a transform interface. So everything in Intertwingler is a handler, including Intertwingler itself. And then the transform is a particular flavor of handler that all it does is operate over message bodies, like HTTP message bodies. So like resizing an image would be an example of something like that, or turning JSON into, YAML, whatever, right? Like you could make handler or transforms to do anything that was orthogonal to the actual business logic itself. So the all of that's aspirational, you know, but the sort of, there's a sort of a principle of what I call intelligent heterogeneity behind it. And that's the assumption that your stack is going to be heterogeneous. It's not going to be all one thing, and might as well be smart about it. But the fact that it's in Ruby is really kind of an ephemeral thing, and it's not going to be that way forever. I would love, in fact, for there to be many like versions of Intertwingler, like in a bunch of different languages that can all, you know, talk to each other, because the actual footprint of the code is not very big, and especially if you stripped out, like, it's like, you know, modules in the Linux kernel or whatever, which are like, you know, 80% of the code, you know, is modules. And so it's the same sort of thing, right? Like there's going to be like, say you take SAS, for example, which is the CSS preprocessor. The new one is written in Dart. Well, I had, you know, but what you could do is you could make a microservice that was just, you know, a one thing running Dart, and you throw the CSS through it, and CSS comes out the other side.
Sure.
You know, and you just stick that in the pipeline. So all of that's like real touch and go at this moment. Like I don't have that full interface on yet, but like I'm hoping within like the next year that's going to be the thing. And then like we can, like, you know, start thinking about different versions of Intertwingler or different things. But like there's a bunch of stuff to write. So I got a content addressable store. I was just telling Marc-Antoine yesterday morning that I'm going to be writing my own freaking RDF quad store with a history and, you know, the principles and RDF star and blah 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 blah. But you know, that's a whole thing. But here, let me go to Sense Atlas, and
Yeah, I think showing us Sense Atlas is actually the most useful thing.
yeah, I just gotta find it. So let me, oops. Now I don't know if I can I move to the full screen this, or I'm on OBS right now.
It's cool.
Is it fine to I know I'm probably
Oh,
It
yeah.
could be clearer, yes.
let me see if I can move to share screen. Hang on a second. Oops. That okay. 3. And then I'll just go back. Sorry, I have like EXWM running right now on my Linux laptop, and it is Zoom gets lost in it. So let me try to just do this. And it also, it doesn't like participants can now see your screen, but they can't see Zoom. There we go. You can see that now.
No, it's
Yeah,
much
that's
better.
good.
Kind of.
That's good. Yeah.
No, it's much better.
So so this design comes from, so this is, you know, the you're probably familiar with this. The pink guys are issues. The green guys are positions. I'm trying to find one. And then the blue guys are arguments. Oh, and this is a task. So I actually went and I extended a layer on top of IBIS itself. It's going to take a while to load because the load is huge. Where the idea is you have your argumentation, and then you can actually graduate up some of the entities. So this is the gavel is a position, and the little screwdriver and wrench is a task. So these can actually switch between them, but I'm going to wreck stuff if I do that. But the idea is effectively, and I know Jack, you've said that the people hate the graph. I was actually wondering the extent to which it was like the force directed that it was that people hated, or they just hate graphs in general. This is a Sugiyama that I did hyperbolic. So there's and it's taken forever to load, but anyway. So it's in hyperbolic space. The math isn't quite right, actually, I've noticed. But again, it's like one of those millions of things to fix. But like you've got the big, the thing in the center is always the thing in the cartouche here. And then the neighbors are all go down the line as to what they are. And then I have some other stuff here for, and then concerns is actually a SCOS thing. So you can, so I've gone, the way that I designed and this is all RDF. So all of the CSS is all dispatched by RDFA. All of the and then all of the IBIS entities are they are all they're subclasses of SCOS concepts. So these are all SCOS concepts.
I have a question that when you say RDFA, does that just mean triples? Like you're saying like this thing is that
It means
or
triples embedded in HTML.
Yeah.
okay.
Triples embedded in HTML attributes.
Gotcha.
It's very so if you actually look at the I'll make this bigger one sec. If you actually look at the I don't know if this is going to have much of the way in it because it's definitely reading it out of the source. So I made this originally back in so RDFA, that property there, this is RDFA, the property, content, and data type. But yeah, so they got the prefixes and whatever, and you can sponge that. And so basically what it's doing is it's sponging it out of the thing, and all of the CSS is all routed from RDFA as well, which is how it's like easy to wrangle a zillion colors. Yeah, what I was going to say about it was that so all the IBIS entities are subclasses of SCOS. And then I have this sort of PM ontologist, process model ontologist. It's all subclasses of IBIS. And the sort of original idea for this was, I don't know who's familiar with Notes on the Synthesis of Form by Christopher Alexander. But the idea, the whole reason that got me on this thing in the first place, way back, was that I was interested in doing this hierarchical decomposition business, this sort of min-cut partitioning stuff. So like taking hard problems and then decomposing them into recursively into simpler problems until there were problems that were tractable. And I was really sold on Alexander's idea that there's a right and a wrong way to do this, and the right way is topological. Namely, you cut as few things as you can get away with, and then I was interested in that because well, what I found was in so doing is that the actual act of getting all the bits and pieces and putting them and connecting them together so that you could do this topological decomposition was a huge amount of the job, and so I was interested in some sort of tool that would afford doing those kinds of recording that information, effectively recording a graph really quickly, and that's what I ended up doing with Sense Atlas. And so,
just for it may be obvious for you. I'm not sure everybody knows it. I think you can have RDF content in text, right? RDFA content in a text HTML document and extract the IBIS structure from that. Am I right?
Yeah, that's actually what this is doing.
Yeah, I think people should realize that. I guessed it was the case, but I thought people should know that.
Yeah, so this is like the actual the raw source. So you've got and they're just UUIDs for now, but the Intertwinglers resolver has an overlay that you can rewrite those to whatever you want, and then it'll remember them, and then it'll remember everything that it's ever been. Yeah, so like this HTML, like if I was going to go, for example, actually, let me just go back to this, and then I was just going to turn off JavaScript.
Yeah, I was going.
Then you get that. And then if you go, and if I was going to go over to...
So this is text as such, which happens to code for this argument structure.
Yeah,
but
so this
it should be readable as text. I'm telling the others about.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It is, the structure is all here.
And what are the headers?
Oh, the headers are just sorry, these are all backlinks that are not otherwise represented, if they're going to be those bullets, that's it gets put in through a filter.
It's alphabetical, right? Each point is
Yeah, it's just been
alphabetical.
alphabetized. This is just the default
Oh, I see.
display.
So each header is like a node, and then
Yeah.
everything underneath the
Yes,
header is like the links from it,
Yeah.
correct.
or the link. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then it's got these.
Oh, wow.
This is actually just a SCOS render, so like it doesn't know, for example, whatever that is. That's probably a questions. Um,
Hmm.
and but if you turn it back on,
Then you get the full visual view. But
you get the
yeah,
full
it would
visual.
be nice to have other text views. I know you can do it easily with XSLT.
Yeah, there's other views. Yeah, so what I'm actually, so it actually took a really long time to just sort of decide like how that was, all the mechanics of that were going to work. Like one of the things that and again, this is all very, very preliminary. Like this is going to go away. I have no I it's like this has to be here, but I have no idea how it's going to be here, so I just put it like that for now.
This is all
But
client-side processing with XSLT, by the way. Really cute technology. Use of a null
there,
technology.
so so here's the thing about that is that Google in their infinite
I know.
wisdom, yeah, is nuking it out of Chrome. So any day now, this is going to not work in Chrome, so I have to actually move it to the server side, which I'm real thrilled about. But so that's actually one of my major things right now. Actually, I can even go to that. Here, let me
Keep
just,
using Firefox, I guess.
yeah, for now. I mean, but this is actually something I'm going to be streaming this later. I'm going to actually be streaming the process of mapping this all out. So creating a server-side XSLT transform. There's an issue attached to that. So, okay, we were relying on browser cache to keep XSLT from being intolerably slow. That's an issue. Issue has response, implement internal caching. That's actually a task. It's got extra stuff attached to it.
Hmm.
And then there are
We
questions.
see dog fooding in action here.
Yeah, we're dog fooding for sure. I mean, I'm working on the thing in public. Like this is a public instance, and I'm actually like it's on a machine in the back, and I'm actually like messing with it directly. So I'm going to be implementing the cache, but it's like here's a question like how do we handle private cache entries, and there's a whole thing for that. So I can like go down that rabbit hole. But I mean, it's IBIS, like it is IBIS, and associate private cache entities with the principal that requested them. Okay, that sounds like a position. But I have found it to be, so there's a concept at the bottom there, but I have found this to be really like I can really bang it off as long as it's cooperating. I can load this up in even an hour or two and get like a huge array of entities. And I don't know. I've just been that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So
But
what got you into the IBIS, or like is the IBIS, you said that it's just like one of the versions applied to the back end or something like that.
one of the modules, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm calling Sense Atlas an organizational cartography kit, and what I mean by that is like you can map out like the business ecosystem of your organization, the stuff that you're working on, the products, the competitors, regulators. You can, any of the kinds of things that are germane to the organization. And so when I say, yeah, IBIS is just one module, to the extent that you can even call it a module. I mean, it's one vocabulary for sure. Two, if you count the process model ontology on top of that. But it intersects with. Actually, I can even show you. I don't know how much of it is on here, but let me actually go back to that. Here. I'll just share again in a second. Here. Oops. Just go to the, so if I go to like people and companies, I don't remember how much is on here. Oh yeah, no, there's only stuff, but this is a force directed one because it doesn't make sense to have a Sugiyama for that. But I mean, there's me. And this is like FOFN.org. It's busted right now. I'm still working on it. This is like probably the least mature of anything that I've got right now going. But the idea is you can create like entire org trees, and you can create like, I mean, basically, yeah, it's this is social network analysis. And if you go back, to let's just do that. Any of the, doesn't matter. But yeah, so the idea is like to be able to map out like people, the organizations they work for, those affiliations, and so on and so forth. There's another thing that I'm doing, which is like audience mapping, audience. So one of the ideas was take a corpus of content, and then you take all the sort of the concepts that have been articulated in that corpus, like just words. And you can say that audiences like understand, they either understand or they don't understand like what these words mean. And then they either have an affinity for them or they have like a disaffinity. They're like, they don't want to be see or involved in them. So you can actually do like corpus analysis, pull out the concepts, and then you can say like, okay, what are your audiences? What concepts do they know? And to what extent do they, are they affine to these to the corpus? And you can sort of like string together a corpus. You got like corpus on one end, concepts in the middle, and audiences on the end. And then you can do, and then of course the audiences are set theoretic. They're just more SCOS sub concepts or sub classes, and their interactions are basically set theoretic, so you can actually like intersect and subtract and whatever, and then you should be able to get do gap analyses on I don't know where that is. I don't remember if it's in this one or like I have so many instances of this running right now, like I can't remember where the one with all this is, but anyway, so that's sort of one of the things. So like I've got IBIS, I have the process model ontology, those are related. Then I've got people and organization, so those are related. Concepts, I would say concepts, IBIS, PM all go in sort of one thing, and then those are like audiences are sort of like they
Concepts are a bit kind of the foundation for everything you're doing.
Yeah, really they are concepts, and then also like people and people and organizations. And then I'm putting bibliographic ontology, so there's gonna be like citation network in there. And then and then products, and then vanilla notes. And then I'm going to call that done for the repertoire of material, the initial sort of repertoire.
Your base ontology, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a bunch of ontologies. Like it's a half dozen or so, at least if not more. And then Intertwinkler has its own ontology for configuration and whatever. So all the configuration in Intertwinkler is in RDF, and eventually it's going to be accessible from itself, so you can hot configure it. But that is sort of contingent on me doing a lot more work. I'm honestly like, what I'm doing right now is I am putting together just like a bunch of sort of vanilla consulting services to that just so happens to use all this stuff. And then I'm going around and just shopping those around at this point, like so that I can finance development through revenue. So that's my shtick. I'm still working on all that stuff. I'm not here to sell you guys anything. I'm sure you've got your own anyway.
No, but we were just discussing the
Yeah.
kind of interaction between business model, nonprofit, like the
Mhm.
kind of philanthropic model for some of this, because for some of it is for the greater good. We believe the argumentation part, the IBIS part, is totally germane to solving the kind of social tensions we have. But it is interesting. So, for example, not everybody here is using IBIS. A lot of people have a simpler argument pro and con model, as opposed to full IBIS, where you can introduce questions at any layer. But a lot of people also do go into IBIS. Like, for example, you introduce yourself, others haven't, and I shouldn't speak for others, but you've met us. Like Bentley is working a lot on a visual system that kind of gives a quantified, a feeling for the quantified weight of how many arguments are pro and con, and the kind of how solid is the overall IBIS weight. So that's what Bentley's doing. So I don't know if he wants to do a demo, and Joel has his own tool, and maybe I should let Joel describe his.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like another set of types added. I guess it's like it's kind of inspired by IBIS, but the like argument part of it and the questions part of it are like secondary to like problems and solutions. So like you can break down problems, and it's graph based, so there's nodes and edges and stuff, but you like break down a problem node into like causes and detriments, and then like your solutions can have components that individually create their own effects that address the problems. So like it's like a problem solving diagram is what I call it, as the like base, and then any node and edge in there kind of implies a claim that you can make arguments about and ask questions about. Yeah, so it's like it's specific on the domain of like problem solving.
Is it like Tolman-y then? Like, is it more like drilled in, or is it like? Because it sounds like there's like more parts than IBIS.
Yeah, there are more parts. I'm not sure what you mean by Tolman-y, but
I just mean like there isn't there that the guy, was it Ed Tolman or something like that, did the uses of argument was
There's the Tolman model. I don't know, Joel, if you've heard of that yet. Steve from the Sophistic Steve talks about a lot in this group, but I don't know if you've been on with him.
It's an argument structure that may have found its way partially into IBIS, but it was invented for the UN in the 50s.
Actually, yeah, it was inspired a lot by judicial arguments. Pullman studied the arguments that lawyers did, and that was his inspiration for the model. But it is broader application than that. It's very detailed. The idea is when you make an argument, there's this underlying ground that, oh, I can make this claim because there's this underlying ground, and this ground has a warrant, which is kind of an even more fundamental epistemic ground for what is the ground is kind of the context, and warrant is kind of the epistemological underpinning for that context. And the idea that each argument also has a rebuttal. You can say, oh, this is true, of course, unless blah, 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 blah. And that's built into the argument structure. You find that in Walton's argumentation schemes, the notion that any specific argument shape has points of like specific points of questioning or attack. It's like, well, this is true unless XYZ. And so these are the weaknesses of this specific argument shape.
IBIS allows you to ground any claim, pro or con or whatever, in evidence nodes that are generally linked to some artifact out there which you can go read.
I think I would argue that this notion of grounding is not quite the same as that of Tolman, for what it's worth. I see what you're saying, but I think that the notion of ground and warrant are not really I mean, you can capture them in IBIS with basically a ground would be another argument, I think would be the most accurate
So then your
way.
warrant is the evidence node.
No, neither is the evidence node. Evidence is evidence, and ground and warrant are their own thing. It's kind of the ground is like I would translate them both as arguments, but more, basically going up the abstraction layer at each step.
Yeah, the sense that I got from the reason why I asked is that the sense that I got from just from what I remember from the Tolman model is that it's extremely detailed, like and like sort of has an anatomy to it that seems like almost unitary at the IBIS level. Like it, like you can't like in IBIS you can't see that like that level of detail. At least that was my take.
Well, IBIS was invented to deal with warring crowds in town halls. It wasn't invented to deal with scholarship.
Right, right. I didn't actually know it was warring crowds in town. I thought it was an ops research thing, but I guess does that count? Like,
Well, basically, somebody came to UC Berkeley with the "over my dead body, you'll put that freeway through this town" argument as a showstopper for town halls, and they asked, "What the hell is this?"
Mhm.
And so Riddle and his co-author
Mhm.
invented the term wicked problem and decided that if you got people in a warring conversation, the thing to do is to map what they're saying in a liminal object that's outside their brains,
Mhm.
present it to them.
Mhm.
And Jeff Conklin tells me that sometimes, but not always, that presentation changes the nature of the war.
Mhm. Mhm.
Often enough to be worth doing, certainly.
Yes.
Uh, the but I think I'm curious because I remember that, and I remember something about pop. I think Rittel then got co-opted by Rand Foundation to develop the idea of IBIS. Am I right? And
Never heard
that
that
might
one.
have been
I really never heard that one.
okay. I may be wrong. I may be wrong.
Well, I don't know. You could be right, but the entire history that I know of is it came out of uh, UC Berkeley, and exactly who funded it, I don't know, but it was on the premise of uh, of dealing with nasty town halls. So, Dorian, you said something very fascinating. And so I want to make a statement. You said that this space is topological,
Mhm.
and I would agree.
Mhm.
Um, it's not flat and it's not linear. And
Mhm.
since it's not linear, it cannot really, in wicked situations, it cannot be reduced to little chunks that you support the way we did piecewise linear optimization in engineering classes. You don't get to do that. Uh,
Mhm.
you can do that for designing a bridge and trying to figure out what the loads go in which trusses and so on and so forth. But you
Mhm.
can't do it for turbulence and anything that is complex with feedback and amplification and all these other factors.
Mhm.
So the best you can do is a simple causal loop diagram based on various claims as a way of saying, oh gosh, so that's what we're saying, but it's to help you see the topology of the space,
Mhm.
but you really can't reduce it to,
Yeah.
oh, if I solve this problem, that one will go away. History shows that if you solve that one problem in a complex situation, you create 10 others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, if I gotta go back to the sort of the thing that kicked it off for me, it was Alexander's PhD thesis and notes on the synthesis of form, that where he's like, okay, the purpose of design is fitness, and the way that you got a form and you got a context, and the context is what you don't change, and the form is the thing that you change to fit the context. And you're going to have a whole bunch of concerns, and those concerns are going to interact with each other in a sort of arbitrary set of ways that it's your job to discover how they interact. And then what you're going to end up with is you're going to get end up with this sort of set of fitness variables that are either in a satisfied or an unsatisfied state. And then those are going to be connected together by interactions. But if you've got an entire connected graph, you're going to have, such that if you satisfy one, you're going to satisfy the other. Or if you're going to satisfy one, you're going to unsatisfy the other. But if you have a connected graph, flipping one is going to flip all of them.
Yep.
And so, but like that doesn't necessarily mean it's intractable. And I mean, Notes on the Synthesis of Form was written in 1964. And his solution was like, what we're going to do is we're going to take a minimum cut algorithm. We're going to find the edges that, we're going to, like, the partition that cuts the fewest amount of edges, and then we're going to repeat that process until we have a bunch of subgraphs that are small enough. But you're still cutting edges. And then he went off and he did pattern languages, for 30 years or whatever that was. And then he wrote the magnum opus, Nature of Order, which is about these sort of like 15 isomorphic transformations and properties that, you're supposed to go, and he sort of eliminated the cut problem entirely. But I think that what was sort of interesting about it, from a perspective of like cognitive and constructs, is that you can create these objects, and and yeah, they're not orientable, and they're not like, they don't obey, like they don't obey gravity, they're they but like, being able to sort of like change the representation of how they look, rotate them and smush them, and you can tentatively partition them. I mean, like, min cut algorithms are a dime a dozen these days. I mean, like, people do entire PhDs on these things, and there's a bunch of them now that you can just go pick from, and you can run, like, you just get a library and run it on your graph, and it'll, you can get Gephi or whatever, the graph program, and stick it in that, do modularity class, and get a bunch of different colors, and that looks cool. Like the job, like, there's so much you can just do once it's in that structure, a computational data structure, that you couldn't do on an index card when Riddle and Weber were or is it Horst, or is it Riddle et al. were doing it on index cards. And I think that's just really, it's the thing that sticks in my head is Herbert Simon: solving a problem simply means representing it so as to make the solution transparent. Now, simply is doing a lot of work in that sentence, but one can aspire to make it simple.
What I understood last time, and I'm still trying to, I have to research that, because it is extremely interesting. You said that basically some criteria were aligned and some criteria were anti-aligned. Of course, some criteria are probably independent. And the notion of cut has to do with, and really anti-aligned criteria are trade-offs. And from what I understand, the notion of minimizing the cuts is about, in a way, minimizing the trade-offs. Am I right?
Basically, there was, so the process, to the best of my recollection, it's been a while since I've read that book, but the process is basically you go out and you get all these objects you're calling fitness variables.
Yep.
And it's like binary yes or no, is this satisfied? And so, you go out, you do your interviews of the stakeholders, and you go and you measure the site. And this is a case of building an actual, building. You go and you do all your surveying, and you go around asking what the stakeholders, whatever they need, and help get them to, you do your charrettes or whatever. And you get this like hundreds, thousands of these fitness variables, and then you connect them together, and you'll get a hairball. And then there's a sort of a massaging process where you also try to get these things down to the same conceptual scope. And so one thing that was interesting to me about it in IBIS was the generalizes specializes relation between two issues or two objects of any kind.
Yep.
Because
Fundamental.
you can push them, you can basically, like, what I can do, like with this RDF graph, is I can select, with Sparkle, like I can just write a Sparkle query that I can select, all of the issues that do not have, superseding, or, that are the bottom issues, right? And that's just like a trivial operation in Sparkle. And so that, I guess, is sort of the thing that I think of. Like, there's like all of these operations that are just sort of like very, very straightforward in that you get for free with RDF, basically, which was sort of one of the things that attracted me to it initially. But yeah, like being able to pull these like being able to sort of do this sort of topological decomposition, or actually not, like just leave it in the graph and then make it a hypermedia thing that you can navigate through, which is basically what I did. Like when I was like got to the stage of like, oh, I should probably, I'm probably going to roll stuff up so that it gathers up and it doesn't, the display on that is not final, but this sort of,
I have proposals for display, but that's another conversation.
okay.
I will have to leave soonish.
Yeah, I'm sorry for like torpedoing your like it's just
No,
coming in like the
no.
Kool-Aid man.
It's very, very CDL context wise.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks for coming upon my invitation. By the way, I really appreciate your coming and telling us about this, and I wish we could continue the conversation. I have to leave, but by the way, I mean, if others are interested, you should stay. It's you found the RAND thing. I couldn't find it, and I was just going to declare I was giving up on it.
Well, so I found two things that put Riddle and Rand in the same page, but they do not tie them.
No, I think I was wrong. The original Rachel article quotes a RAND thing, and maybe that's what gave me the impression.
They started with Rand's talking about finding objectives.
And it may have confused me, so apologies for the red herring. Anyway, that is not important. What is important is I hope you see we are a crowd. I mean, Dorian was saying so few people care about that stuff, and I hope you find an appropriate community here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Typically, these meetings get much larger than just the five of us.
Right.
5, 6 is there's more people involved, but there's usually people sometimes show up, sometimes don't. So 5, 6 is not unusual as a size, but the community is, I'd say, a dozen-ish, maybe less now, but still.
Yeah. I think I think we interrupted Joel. That do you have like an implementation going, or is it
Yeah, I can share a link. It's called ameliorate.app. Let's put it in the chat there.
And also traditionally, as when I get a new people in the group, we do kind of a round of video of demos over the next week or so. So it's a good time to like show people what our progress has been. So we could continue that next meeting if we want.
Is ameliorated the GitHub? I may have already asked you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
There's a link to the GitHub on the corner of the app.
Okay, folks, and as I said, apologies and continue and have fun. Ciao, ciao.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, I have
I
time.
I should probably go soon as well, but
Well,
stick around for a couple of minutes.
I do think that Dorian brings a lot to our table. I mean, everybody here comes at it from a different train track. And it's amazing what those trains pick up along the way. And when you start to bring them together and examine them, there's a lot of beef there, so to speak.
Beef in the internet beef way.
I don't get to eat beef, but
Oh.
at any rate, I'm reminded of that Wendy's commercial.
Where's the beef?
They hired that old lady to come in and say, "Where's the beef?"
Yeah, for sure. I actually dug that out not too long ago.
Those are really funny commercials.
Yeah.
The other one to look up on YouTube is Parts is Parts. That's a chicken commercial where they're talking about what's in this chicken, and the guy just looks at her kind of dumb and says, "Well, parts is parts." And it's truly funny.
Oh my God, that's funny. Yeah, I think like that I came when oh yeah, there it is. It really was like really boring practical stuff that brought me here, and the just the like it really was like, I think I told you, Jack, it was like I was trying to do effort estimation for software development, um and actually what I came to, the eventual conclusion I came to was don't. But the way that I came to that conclusion was by I just got an outliner out and I wrote down all the prescriptions and proscriptions of like what this particular module that I'm about to write, what it must and must not do, how it must and must not behave. And I called this a behavior sheet, and it produced extremely accurate time estimates. But the problem with it was it took as long to do the behavior sheet as it did to write the code. So if I started writing a behavior sheet on Monday morning at 9 a.m., I could tell you by lunchtime on Wednesday that the module in question could be finished by Friday by the end of the day, which my boss did not appreciate. But I thought that what was interesting about that exercise is it bleached out all of the ambiguities and indeterminacies that you would otherwise encounter as you were sitting down actually writing the code. And it did it in a sort of like a chunkier way. Now, I don't have a counterfactual, so I don't actually know if it saved me any time. I think it did. But what it did do was it regimented the process and actually made it tractable, and it made it, it sort of took the uncertainty out of it. And so it was worth doing in that regard. It just wasn't very good for like, the boss wants to know when it's going to be done. He wants to know, bark out a number right now, which it didn't do. And so it was considered a failure in that regard. But I kept going with it and realized, a lot of these elements can be reused. For starters, you get something that's like this should just be a policy now. This, this prescription on it must do this, it must check sanitize input or whatever, it must log, that kind of a thing. And if you pulled together enough of a corpus of these elements, of these, rules, basically, you wouldn't have to write them down a second time. And if you had them network accessible, then, and addressable individually, then you could just point at them and pick them out. And so that was sort of the germ of all of this. And then, and then it was the Alexander stuff. And I was like, oh, I can just be a lot more rigorous about this. And then it was the, then IBIS came after that. And that was sort of, and then, I wrote the vocab for it in 2012. I wrote the original prototype of what you saw in 2013. And then it sat there for like a decade, because it was kind of, it hit a wall in its implementation, and I couldn't really do anything with it. And like, nobody cared, nobody wanted to pay me for it either. So it sat there until somebody did in 2023. But there's like so much to do. Like there's all of that stuff with the effort estimation. Like I have this whole thing with like when I glibly say don't do effort estimation, what I actually mean is you think about the value rather than the cost, and then you do a Fermi estimate as opposed to an estimate trying to add up from zero. And if you say, okay, well, this is worth, you can get a curve for what this or that thing is worth. And then you can use the graph. You can say, okay, well, the revenue's over here. We're trying to do this thing 4 degrees removed from the revenue. But we can still say that it partakes in it somehow. And so we can do calculations based on just having this network, basically, of elements. And so like, I'm very, very excited to flesh that out, because I think there's like a lot of stuff that can be done by that. You basically go and you say, this piece of something, this piece of software has a value per run. We think it can be run this many times over the next this many years. And, because of that, at the margin, it's going to be worth this with a depreciation function of that, with a risk factor of this, that green lights you to have this much time to go and research it, and then that just turns into a whole dynamic simulation at that point, where you go and you've done the research and you can readjust the numbers and try to figure out, oh, it's worth more, or maybe we should abandon it, that kind of a thing. So that is something that is like, where one of the places that I want to take this thing is basically instrumenting that, because that's going to be real hard to do in a spreadsheet. And so that is like one of the like real sort of goals of Sense Atlas and all of those vocabularies. And then of course making that permeable so that it can be exchanged and it can be, distributed across administrative boundaries and so on and so forth. Which Intertwingler is supposed to facilitate. So yeah, there's two things. There's Sense Atlas and there's Intertwingler. Sense Atlas is the tool.
It's a
Intertwingler is
great vision.
It's a huge vision. It's trouble getting out of my.
I like big visions, Michael Dorf, who played Worf, was walking out of his trailer one day, and he told the camera to step aside because I walk in big steps. Speaking of long computations, do you know what put Cray out of business?
Didn't he die?
No.
Oh.
That was long after the Cray Computer Company went
Okay.
under.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
NASA Ames engineer on a Monday morning put his Navier-Stokes program, Fortran program, in an IBM PC, and then went into work and put the card deck in the Cray queue. They both ended on Friday. Now the Cray only took a second and a half, and the PC took 24/7 for all 5 days. And he took his printout from his PC in, and they compared it to the printout from the Cray, and they were the same.
Hmm.
And NASA said, "Holy shit!"
Mhm.
And they canceled an order for the Cray 2 that they had on order. and just gave everybody in the room PCs. And then they went ahead and discovered a thing called a Beowulf network, which allowed you to hierarchically cluster PCs and share the load and dramatically speed things up. And that was the end of supercomputers.
And now we got Google. And don't they have, so there's also like the Open Compute rack now, which is like a different rack than the 19-inch, and it's got like all modular stuff and like the brain genius thing about Google, the sort of light bulb moment was like any one element of a computer. So it's the power supply, it's the hard drive, it's the RAM, it's the CPU, it's the cooling system, whatever. Like any one part will take it out of service. And so there's no point in having like a big, crazy machine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have these naked circuit boards that are just plug into a backplane on our thing. And if one of them dies, we just got a guy on roller skates who goes around popping them out.
That's pretty much Google invented it, and then Facebook perfected it
Yeah,
by going to something like 48-volt power supplies so that they could have battery backups that were real, and an open frame boxes so that cooling was a whole lot better than all these little screaming fans.
Just blow a big.
And Facebook even printed the diagrams on how to make these yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I sort of like the kind of thing that I really would love to see, and like one of the sort of ideas behind Intertwingler is to really sort of say, okay, and again, HTTP and DNS and URLs like for now are fine, but there's also DIDs and other sort of resolution mechanisms and whatever that could be considered. Like I mean, I wrote a thing a while ago. I called it the 100-year infrastructure. And basically it's like, we're going to have the web, like we've got the web, we're going to have something like it, for the next 100 years. And it's going to be at least the web, if not better. Like there's still going to be some kind of networked hypermedia unless, Google kills it. Unless somebody makes it illegal. There's going to be some like, hypermedia is here to stay. And if it's not like the web, it's going to be better, is basically my hypothesis. And so it's like, okay, like how do you make it so that you've got these network hypermedia systems that last? Because they don't last right now. Like Linkrod is a horrible scourge. People are redesigning their web, they move it to a new platform every couple of years. There's like SaaS, vendors in there that, they go out of business or they get bought or they get, or people they move from one vendor to another and just nuke everything. So like the web is like, it could be incredibly durable, but it's like terribly brittle. And so like there was a lot of that thinking. And so it was like, how do you make it so that you've got this address space that you can go anywhere in the address space, like just like the web, but also like federate it. And like a lot of the stuff is happening right now with like AppProto and ActivityPub, for example. But like having it be like a resource oriented thing, so there's always a way to point to something, and and as long as somebody, it's kind of like IPFS, like as long as somebody out there cares to leave this thing online, whatever it is, like it'll work. But that last person goes away and the thing goes away, which is, I would consider to be a failure.
Archive.org is there to archive everything. And
Sure.
It stunned me because, I wrote an article for Dr. Dobbs's journal in 1985. And I thought, I bought a whole bunch of copies of it because when I was at the market, because my article was on the cover. And I thought I'd never see it again because Dr. Dobbs's went under, but damn if it isn't on it at our, they've literally photocopied the magazine. It was a
Yeah.
paper copy.
Yeah.
So it's there. And you and I would not be having this conversation if I hadn't if I hadn't done that article.
Huh.
I'm gonna have to dip out here, but it was great talking to you guys, and
You guys should know that Dorian has a Substack.
I moved off Substack. It is, but
Did?
it is on Button Down.
Oh, all
It
right.
is
Feel
off
free
my.
to
It's off
feel
my.
free to
web-
post a link in the Discord.
Discord, yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
sure,
I also have to head out too, so it's
Right.
probably time we shut down the meeting.
Why
sure.
did you move off of Substack?
Why? Because I mean, a lot of reasons. There's political reasons. There's general sketchiness of them being just not like they're kind of a slimy company.
They are.
But honestly, like the thing that was the most acute that really pissed me off was the fact that their editor, like there's no way to like automate the entry of text. They want you to physically type it in, and they do that on purpose. And that's just not how I work. And so it took me like 3-4 extra hours every time I would put something on Substack because I had to go reformat it all by hand. And I just hated that. And so it was very easy, it's kind of like one of those like, oh, like they're a slimy company and they, you know, they platform Nazis and, they're trying to wall the thing off. They're trying to make it a whole proprietary thing. And then and there's like a new hacky life or a growth hacky thing they do every week. But the thing that really broke the camel's back for me was that like I am sick to death of having to reformat this document every time I want to do something new or new thing. So it was just a
I wrote a piece for Medium on
Mhm.
on Microsoft Word and just literally copied and pasted in, and it
Mhm.
fell right in. The only thing it wouldn't take was the images, so I had to hand put those in.
Yeah.
But that blew me away.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Button Down now, and you can paste in raw HTML and you can paste in Markdown. And so what I do is like I do all my masters in HTML anyway. Like I do them all in just raw HTML because I usually have metadata in there anyway. And I have macros and crap, that make that not painful for me. But so it's always degraded when I send out newsletters. I don't love newsletters as a format. I think they are degenerate, and I think there's a reason why we're using them now. But and I understand the sort of like why they're back, but like I find them just inferior to ordinary web web pages. And so, I use them myself I use newsletters as a notification mechanism to tell me to go look at my friend's website. That's what they do. They RSS, but degenerate.
Gotta
Yeah.
run.
Yeah, I gotta also head out. And when I leave, I don't know if the meeting will stay open or not. Since
Oh,
I'm
it's
the
fine.
host.
I gotta run too, but it's been nice
All
meeting you guys and then talking to you and talking to you again,
Yeah.
Jeff. All right.
right.
See you
We'll
soon.
see you next time.